Hi, I'm Susan and we're at Becker Home in Bray in the Shetland Islands, which is at 60 degrees north. My grandparents were very keen gardeners and I got a love of gardening from them. I went on to study horticulture and worked in the industry for many years, and then now I'm retired. This is my passion. So about 6 years ago, when we were considering growing our own food, my health had seriously deteriorated. I was very depressed, and I'd been researching into the use of pesticides and herbicides in the growing of food. And I walked into the local co-op one day, and it's like I had an epiphany, and it's like, I can't eat any of this food in here, it's covered in poison. And that's what really spurred me on to do what you see here and grow all this food that's grown organically. It's very nutritious because the soil is healthy. I've been building up the ecology of the soil and the natural microbes and everything. And as a result, I don't have health issues anymore and I'm really happy. This is an ornamental tobacco plant, and as Hugh will testify, if you touch the leaves, they're very, very sticky. So I grow it as a natural flycatcher. It also has very beautifully scented flowers which scent at night time, so it also attracts nighttime pollinators into the tunnel. I garden intuitively. Even though I've had a formal sort of training in gardening, I've thrown the rule book out, and I've come to realise that it's better to work with nature rather than against nature. I grow nettles as a companion plant. I do have to obviously keep them under control, but they attract the green fly. So rather than the green fly being on my edible plants, they go onto the nettles. The seeds are also highly nutritious, and you can make nettle tea to use as a compost tea. They've got lots of uses, so I actually use them as a further crop. So I consider them another crop. So as we've already looked at, you will see there are what people consider weeds and pests amongst my garden. But to me, it's part of growing. You need all these things in your garden to make it grow in a balanced and healthy way. The Shetland Islands is at 60 degrees north, so we're on a line with Norway. So it's quite very challenging conditions to grow here. It can get very windy. We've had 80-mile-an-hour winds here, and these polycrubs are built specifically to withstand that kind of wind. So the best way to grow food crops is to create a shelter, and the polycrubs are ideal for doing that. This nectarine tree that you see here has grown from a stone, which was the result of a nectarine that we bought from the local supermarket and ate, threw on the compost. Then when we top dressed in here with the compost, it germinated. So it's about 4 years old, I think, roughly. And as you can see, it's fruiting prolifically. There are sparrows in the tunnel at the moment. Now, many gardeners would be going about that, but actually they eat the insects that you don't want in here. And if I've got something I need to protect, then I just put a bit of netting over it, because they will eat your seedlings, so that's easily remedied. They reckon it takes about 3 years to get a proper predator-prey ecological balance, and that's certainly proved to be the case in here. I'm not overrun with pests. Many of the things that people consider weeds, like docks, there's docks growing in here. Chop and drop, which is a permaculture technique. They're what are called mineral accumulators, so they have very deep tap roots. They draw the minerals up and bring that into your soil that you want there for your plants. So it's all about working with nature rather than against it. I was cooking some Shetland lamb and I needed some rosemary. This was before or in the early days of the polytunnel, and I bought some cut rosemary from the local shop, had some left, stuck it in the ground, and this is the result. If somebody came to me and said, I don't know anything about gardening, I want to start from scratch, it's very, very easy. We've been led to believe that it's difficult, and we've been disempowered over the years, but it's actually very easy. It's as simple as you can grow most of the crops I grow here. You can grow in a container or a tub. If you haven't got much money, you can repurpose things. I repurpose buckets. Part of one of the permaculture principles is to reuse and recycle things, and these blue barrels wash up quite readily around the shores of Shetland. I presume they're from the aquaculture industry, but I'm not really sure. So we collect these when we find them when we're beachcombing, and they make ideal water storage. We also discovered that this tile edging makes a fantastic gutter, and so all these barrels have been filled from rainwater because you've got a huge water harvesting area. We also collect seaweed, which is locally known as tang, from the shore, and we make a compost tea from that. Once I sort of got into growing edibles, I then got inspired to look into medicinal herbs like the feverfew, and also then branched out into growing dye plants because I'm also interested in natural dyes. And this is woad, which is a member of the cabbage family, and you get a lovely blue dye. So this is one of the polycultures I have in the tunnel, and in amongst it is this lovely lemon verbena, and it's a half-hardy shrub. So although because we're surrounded by water, it doesn't get very, very cold in Shetland. We don't get really hard frosts. There still has been occasions where the temperature has dipped below freezing in here. So what I've done is in the winter I prune it back, cover it with a fleece, and then I've got these hot water bottles. So the local Shetland milk bottles filled with tap water, and I just put them round it like a hot water bottle, and they heat up during the day and they just emit enough warmth just to keep it above freezing. As well as creating food for myself, I'm also very keen to create habitat for wildlife, for insects. There's currently hoverflies on this parsley, so much of the growing is bearing this in mind, is that I'm also creating habitat and food for the insects and for the other wildlife. I follow basic permaculture principles, and one of those is to use companion planting. So I use nasturtiums around the apple tree because it deters the codling moth, but it's also both its leaves and its flowers are edible, and the seeds as well. These are also edible. They're very fiery, peppery, and you can pickle them and use them like capers. So all the plants have like a dual purpose. The long-term plan is to create a food forest, so an indoor food forest for the things that won't grow outside, and outside I'm also developing a food forest. So it's moving away from quite so many annuals to more sustainable perennial type planting. This variety of pea is a heritage variety from Sweden. It's a very old variety, and as you can see, it's quite unusual. The flowers almost grow in a raceme, and the peas taste really delicious. So unless you create a shelter belt, be it artificial with netting or pallets, or with we tend to use willow trees because they grow very well in Shetland. The wind will just nip the tops of anything that you grow in, any shrubs or trees. It just burns them off. Due to the latitude that we're at, we have 24-hour daylight, and plants like the people like to make the most of the summers here. So we have a very short, intense growing season where kind of everything just bursts into life and does its thing, because through the winter we get very short days and long nights.